The third-round pick that the Jets are sending to the Raiders in exchange for Davante Adams. That can become a second-rounder. It was getting back together with Aaron Rodgers. For years, he has been throwing to one guy, Davante Adams.
I've been enjoying reading the comment section from the first Davante Adams video of the year to the second Davante Adams video of the year to the comments on the Instagram reel completely crucifying me for saying that Davante Adams is going to get traded before all this stuff came out. And then, of course, him getting traded. And my bad, I don't mean to stroke my ego too hard. It's just nice whenever you prove the haters wrong. And it's even better when we get the first blockbuster trade of the season, because typically you don't see trades like this. You never see a player of Davante Adams' caliber getting traded in the middle of the season. So this is absolutely unprecedented. So before we get to the content, we are on the grind to 1 million subscribers. We're about 50,000 subscribers away from a crazy milestone. So if you want to subscribe and help us get to that goal, and also let me know how I could give back to you guys for supporting me, please let me know in the comment section down below. And now that we get all that out of the way, break! We made $500 on prize picks this past Sunday, and fortunately, a lot of you guys tailed my picks on Instagram and Snapchat, and you guys let me know in my DMs. One of you even made $1,000 from my picks. Fortunately, we've been on a crazy streak, and if you haven't played prize picks, download the app or click in the link in the description down below and use my promo code microphone to get $100 when you make an entry of $5 or more. Then follow me on Instagram at @theflightmike or on Snapchat to get my picks for free. And thank you, prize picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Davante Adams' situation with the Raiders and how he got to the point where he got traded by the Las Vegas Raiders is one of the most ironic storylines I think I've ever covered in my career. Because the reason why Davante Adams got into this situation to begin with was because he was trying to avoid the exact situation that he found himself with the Las Vegas Raiders. When Davante Adams' contract was set to expire with the Green Bay Packers, he realized that Aaron Rodgers' days might be numbered with the Packers, and Aaron Rodgers was teasing that possibility for the previous 2 off seasons. Originally, there was speculation that he was going to go to the Denver Broncos, he was going to take Nathaniel Hackett with him, but it was a very real possibility that Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to be a member of the Green Bay Packers during the lifespan of Davante Adams' next biggest contract. So Davante Adams had a great idea. He was going to reunite with Derek Carr. At that point, Derek Carr not only was coming off of the greatest season of his career, but it was clear that he was the future of the Las Vegas Raiders once again. This was a season where Derek Carr was able to take the Raiders to the playoffs and completely embarrass Brandon Staley in the process, despite the Raiders having John Gruden resign in the middle of the season and go through the Henry Ruggs tragedy. The Raiders rewarded Derek Carr with a huge contract extension as well, so it was clear that Davante Adams would be playing with his college QB for the foreseeable future, at least throughout the lifespan of that contract extension. And throughout the season, Davante Adams was prolific once again. Another 1,500 yard plus receiving season with 14 touchdowns. Then for some reason, Josh McDaniels decided to do this.
We're going to go ahead and start Jarrett the last couple games of the season here. You know, none of us is happy with where we're at, but we think it's an opportunity to, you know, evaluate a younger player who hasn't had much time to play. You know, talking to Derek, who was great. You know, he understands the scenario that we're in and the situation, and very supportive of the 2 young guys. Those 3 guys obviously have worked together.
And one of the most unprecedented things we've ever seen, all of a sudden, Derek Carr gets benched in the latter part of the season for Jarrett Stidham. And then just 1 year into his new contract extension, the Raiders decided to cut ties with Derek Carr and move forward with Josh McDaniels' vision, because Josh McDaniels had a tremendous track record of building successful football teams. McDaniels would bring in one of his own guys, Jimmy Garoppolo, and to Davante Adams' credit, he was still a very good wide receiver with Jimmy Garoppolo under center, but clearly things weren't perfect. If you saw the receiver series on Netflix, you could tell that Davante wasn't the happiest with Jimmy as his receiver.
Bench Jimmy Garoppolo for the rookie Aiden O'Connell.
What was your opinion on that? Well, my opinion on that was that I signed off on that, and that's just the reality of it. You know, I love Jimmy, and he's a great guy, but something had to happen in order for us to have a chance down the stretch and for me to remain a Raider, in all honesty.
And through it all, there was a revolving door at the quarterback position, and then eventually the Raiders would fire their head coach in the middle of the season. Out goes Josh McDaniels, in comes Antonio Pierce. Through it all, Davante still had another 1,000 plus yard receiving season, but he didn't make any of the all-pro teams. But it was still a testament to the type of receiver he was. There are a few wide receivers in the NFL that could get it done no matter who is under center. Receivers like prime DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, and Davante Adams. But in the offseason, the hope was that the Raiders would somehow, some way, at least get themselves a brand new quarterback. I mean, there was no way that the plan was to go into this season with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell as your quarterbacks, right? Well, unfortunately, there was a huge spree of quarterbacks that were taken at the top of the 2024 NFL Draft. Caleb Williams at number 1, Jaden Daniels at number 2, Drake May at number 3, JJ McCarthy at number 4. Then you had Bo Nix going in the first round. Who thought that was going to happen? So it was nearly impossible for the Raiders to pick their quarterback of the future as well. So Davante Adams and the Raiders found themselves in a tough spot. Now, in the offseason, Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams flirted with the concept of playing with one another, with Aaron Rodgers saying this:
I love Lou Getsy. He's a fantastic coach.
Awesome.
And I love Davante. I can't wait to play with him again.
Great.
And Davante Adams literally pouring out his heart and soul in regards to his affection for Rodgers during the receiver series.
It was good to see him. We went to dinner at Barry's and sat in the back room and just chopped it up for like 4 hours. So it was good to get that time.
Into next year. I'll see you out there.
Now here's where it would get really interesting. Following the Raiders' loss to the Carolina Panthers in week 3, Antonio Pierce gave a very cryptic press conference where he said that some people made business decisions.
The team just didn't seem to show up tonight.
No, they didn't. I think as the game went on, I don't think it was a team. I think there was definitely some individuals that made business decisions. And we'll make business decisions going forward as well.
Now, originally, fans thought that this could have been Jack Jones refusing to tackle Chuba Hubbard, but as time went on, it seemed very clear that Antonio Pierce was talking about Davante Adams. Now, historically, Davante Adams hasn't been an individual that has been a diva, in my opinion. He's not like Antonio Brown that's always stirring the pot. He makes it very obvious when he's frustrated, but he won't say a word of it to the media. I mean, even when Derek Carr was cut, this is the way he reacted.
Obviously, I don't think anybody was excited about it in there. I mean, him being a member of one of my really good friends, and the reason why I came here in the first place. I mean, I wouldn't be here right now if he wasn't, if he wasn't there. So I think everybody knows how I feel about him, and with that said, there's a process of how things go, and I'm not gonna sit here and go on and on. But obviously, I support my guy, and we got to finish the season out, the best way we can possible with, all things considered at this point. But anything else that you guys got, you can leave that for culture.
And bear in mind, I understand that we may brush an interview like this off, but you have to remember that Davante Adams solely came to the Raiders to play with Derek Carr. So the fact that Derek Carr got cut the moment that Davante Adams extended his contract was certainly Davante Adams' worst nightmare. He was trying to avoid that situation to begin with. Now, Davante Adams would discuss the situation on Up and Adams, and things were as bad as you thought.
How soon did you hear from Coach?
I haven't heard from him. I haven't talked to him. So I haven't, I don't know. I don't really know exactly what that was about. Obviously I got, social media is a beast. So it's a lot of people out there that saw it and, wondering what's going on and people reaching out. And I haven't spoke to him.
Well, I'm surprised by that.
But I haven't, there's been no communication with anybody from the team since that became a thing.
And what was really interesting is we would eventually find out from Vinny Bonsignore that the Raiders were gauging trade interest for Davante Adams. Now, this came at a very interesting time because Aaron Rodgers was clearly frustrated with the New York Jets offense and the fact that his entire offense weren't consistent with the snap count and his cadence.
The cadence specifically, Robert said that might be something you guys have to dial back a little bit. Is that something you think could potentially help the situation?
It's one way to do it. The other way is hold them accountable. I mean, we haven't had an issue. We've had one false start. Morgan had one false start, I believe, until this. So
Now, I know this may not be the biggest deal, but this is something that Rodgers is known for throughout his career. His ability to manipulate the snap count and get free plays is one of his signature moves. So if you're not able to execute that, then you're not getting the best version of Aaron Rodgers possible. And Davante Adams ironically even commented on this on Up and Adams, which was just recorded a few days ago.
Aaron's all about the attention to detail. So snap count, that's attention to detail. We got to be locked in on something like that. You know, we always talked about in Green Bay that the play is hard enough to win on its own. So let's not lose it pre-snap. You know, at least make it, you know, a competitive thing. Sometimes you're going to get outmanned. Sometimes you're going to get out-muscled. And, you know, sometimes a guy's going to be faster than you. But make the control variable. At least let's get our pre-snap operation smooth. And, you know, everybody hears the same snap count in the huddle. So there's really no excuse for some of these things. So, holding people accountable, I agree.
And eventually we would find out that Davante Adams has requested a trade. Now immediately I said the primary contenders, in my opinion, are the New York Jets, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Washington Commanders. But Davante Adams' two favorite teams that he wanted to play for were the New York Jets and the New Orleans Saints. Why? Because the New York Jets have the quarterback that he spent most of his career with in Aaron Rodgers. The New Orleans Saints have Derek Carr, who actually has performed really well to start the season and was his quarterback when they were in Fresno State together. Again, Davante just wants consistency at the quarterback position. But here's what's even more fascinating. Davante said that he doesn't necessarily need to be a 1,500-yard receiver on his next team. He just wants to win a Super Bowl. So he doesn't mind playing with Lamar Jackson.
Speaking of Lamar Jackson, you could either play on a team where Lamar Jackson is the quarterback and you're guaranteed a Super Bowl, but as the leading receiver, you might have 858-yard season like Zay Flowers did, max.
I think it's funny that we judge who's the best receiver off of who has the most yards anyway, because not everybody's getting the same targets. The offense ain't the same. Like that shouldn't be what's like. To me, if you have 1,300 and somebody has 15 and a half, to me, you can have a better season than them with that 1,300, depending on what the touchdown and just how it looked, whatever you did. So I've had big seasons. I don't necessarily need the 1,700. That would feel great. If you're giving me a bowl and I get to get out there with Dub and Lamar and have fun, boys be having, I think I might take that 900 and keep it. Give me 10 tugs and I'm good.
But Rob Gronkowski actually felt like it was more likely that you might see a Tampa Bay Buccaneers-like situation on the New York Jets between Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams.
I can read Brady's mind. I can do that. Davante has that with Aaron. How meaningful is that?
It's very meaningful because you got to build up that chemistry with the quarterback, and it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and years of work, and that's why I wanted to play with Tom. It is the best fit for him to go back to New York. I mean, not to go back to New York, but go back with Aaron Rodgers in New York. I believe he will elevate the team to a whole nother level. They need a true number one.
What was really fascinating, and this is why I'm completely not sold on Antonio Pierce as a head coach in the NFL, is when Antonio Pierce was asked about how he's handling the situation, he thought he was the next coming of Bill Belichick. I mean, this all started with Antonio Pierce liking an Instagram post saying that Davante Adams might get traded from the Raiders. And when he was questioned about that, he said this.
So yesterday, Davante went on the Up and Adams show to discuss, I guess, a social media post earlier this week. Is that something that was accidental on your part in terms of liking the post? Or?
Yeah, I'm just focused on Denver.
Have you communicated with Davante, and where is the relationship with you?
Me and Davante talk often.
Have you talked to him since all of this?
I believe that between me and Davante.
I really don't think I've seen a coach that's more unlikable than Antonio Pierce. It takes a lot for me to dislike a head coach after 6 games. But so far, Antonio Pierce has proven to me that he is just not capable of being a head coach in the NFL. He's made his emotions public with his best offensive player. He wasn't able to handle the situation behind closed doors. And whenever the media calls him out on it, he tries to act like he's one of the greatest head coaches of all time. I mean, Bill Belichick doesn't like Instagram posts implying that his star wide receiver should get traded and then say, we're on to Cincinnati.
Well, you think having a 37-year-old...
We're on to Cincinnati. It's nothing about the past, nothing about the future. It's right now we're preparing for Cincinnati.
Okay, do you feel like the talent you have here is good?
we're getting ready for Cincinnati.
So this isn't the same thing. Eventually, Schefter would discuss what it would take to get Davante Adams on the roster. It'd be something like a second-round pick, which is very consistent with Davante Adams' value. The Texans traded a second-round pick for Stephon Diggs, and he's 30 years old, but has been statistically less prolific than Davante Adams. The Bears traded a fourth-round pick for Keenan Allen, who's 32 years old, but also has been less prolific than Davante Adams. Davante Adams is 32 years old, and has proven that he could really get it done with any QB. And then eventually we would find out some inside info as to why Davante Adams wants this trade. According to Jordan Schultz, Davante Adams has been considering a trade request out of Las Vegas for weeks. Last season, his camp even approached the team about a potential change of scenery, but made no official request. Adams is aware that his contract makes a trade possible, and he has a few preferred destinations if the Raiders decide to move him. The Jets are one of those teams. The situation's fluid and there's more to come. Part of the reason why Davante Adams ended up with the Raiders was because of his relationship with Carr. The team dumped his quarterback after 1 year, and many things have gone wrong since, which has left Adams frustrated. But at this point, it also just seemed like a no-brainer. The Raiders are clearly not contending for a Super Bowl, and the Jets would happily overpay for a player of Davante Adams' caliber. Other teams that were reportedly interested were the Dallas Cowboys for about 3 hours, but it only took them 3 hours to realize that the Cowboys don't make sense at all whatsoever, primarily because they have the second highest paid wide receiver in the NFL and the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, and they need to pay Micah Parsons. How the hell are you going to be able to fit Davante Adams into that? The Chiefs are obviously a very fun contender in the receiver market, but why would the Raiders help out the Kansas City Chiefs if they're in the same division? It takes a lot for me to dislike a head coach after 6 games. So there was a gigantic smokescreen by the Las Vegas Raiders because they wanted at least a second-round pick in return for Davante Adams' services, which, by the way, Bill Belichick thinks is a ridiculous valuation for some reason.
Davante Adams wants to get traded. That's going to be a big story. And I have a feeling that, as we tape this, by the end of this week, he probably will get traded.
Not for a second-round pick, which supposedly is what they're asking for.
That's ridiculous.
I don't see how anybody's going to give a second-round pick for him. You'd have to feel like this guy is going to Adams is going to take us to the promised land, and he's going to get us over the hump this year because he's also got a big salary.
Which I think is hysterical because 5 years ago, Bill Belichick traded a second-round pick for Mohamed Sanu. So to say that Davante Adams isn't worth a second-round pick is kind of funny. But things changed completely for the New York Jets over the past 48 hours. I mean, we all know that the Jets are at a brand new level of desperation, and some of the moves that they're making just don't make sense at all whatsoever. For example, they have one of the top defenses in the NFL, and they have a respected defensive head coach in the NFL, Robert Saleh. But for some reason, they decided to fire their defensive head coach and promote their defensive coordinator. And although they made a change at offensive coordinator, elevating Todd Downing and giving him play calling duties, it's clear that this team is in full-on panic mode. So given all these changes that occurred this past week, the New York Jets were hoping that they could get something going on Monday Night Football versus the Buffalo Bills. And to be honest, there were some great moments in this game, like the Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary to end the half was absolutely magical. And Aaron Rodgers even threw for nearly 300 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception in that game. But New York Jets still lost 20-23. Whose fault was this? Well, according to Aaron Rodgers, it was his wide receivers.
2 verticals, Allen's down the seam, Mike's down the red line. So I'm looking at Allen, he puts his hand up, 3 guys go with him, so I'm throwing a no look to the red line. And when I just peek my eyes back there, he's running an inbreaker. It's got to be down the red line.
Were you throwing that like to come back to it?
No, I was throwing it to the red line, but when I got to about here, I realized he was running an inbreaker, so I had to kind of adjust it a little bit. But the play is 2 guys vertical, 1 guy down the seam, 1 guy on the red line.
So the Jets are now officially 2-4, and don't get me wrong, Aaron Rodgers did take some accountability for this.
That seemed a little ridiculous. Some of them seemed really bad, including the roughing the passer on me. That's not roughing the passer. Might as well play sarcastic ball if we're going to call those things. And I thought the one on Kinlaw was not roughing the passer either.
So once again, they're in panic mode. They're 2-4 currently. They lost to their division rival Buffalo Bills, but believe it or not, the AFC East is still winnable if they could turn things around at this point. They're currently in the midst of a 3-game losing streak. So this morning when we woke up, we got 2 pieces of huge news from the New York Jets. The first being that Hassan Reddick, the pass rusher who literally got fired by his agency CAA, was given permission to seek a trade. He's been holding out all season long, and I guess the Jets want to get some value in return for him. And the other piece of news we got this morning is the fact that the New York Jets finally traded for Davante Adams. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, according to Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter, the Raiders are completing a trade of star wide receiver Davante Adams to the Jets, back with his good friend Aaron Rodgers as Las Vegas moves on. The compensation in return is that Davante Adams will be traded for a conditional third-round pick that can go to a second-round pick. I personally think this is a really cool move for the New York Jets. I mean, we've seen it over the past couple of years, Aaron Rodgers wanting to reunite with Davante Adams. Davante Adams has been searching for a quarterback that he can trust, so from that respect, it's awesome. On paper, it's incredible. You have Davante Adams, Garrett Wilson, and Allen Lazard as your wide receivers. I believe this makes Mike Williams as the odd man out, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Mike Williams trade relatively soon. But this is a trade that we've been speculating on this YouTube channel for almost a year now. Last year, from the moment that the Las Vegas Raiders had some turmoil, I was speculating that Davante Adams would find his way back to Aaron Rodgers. In terms of the salary cap, it makes a lot of sense as well, at least for the rest of this year. And it has been the norm recently to keep two top-tier wide receivers on your roster, although I think this is without a doubt the best wide receiver tandem in the NFL now. So we'll see what a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers could do with Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson and the New York Jets defense. I just wish they never fired Robert Saleh personally. But as Bill Belichick would say,
that's kind of what it's been there at the Jets. Barely won over 30% in the last 10 years. The owner being the owner, just ready, fire, aim.
For the New York Jets, I grade the trade an A, mainly because they're not giving up too much for Davante Adams. But it's hard to say that I'm confident in the New York Jets moving forward, just given the decisions that they've made recently. But still, it's going to be a lot of fun to see this go down. For the Las Vegas Raiders, I give this trade a C. I mean, the Raiders gave up the number 22 pick, the number 53 pick, $56 million of cash, and they got 37 games of Davante Adams in return. They got at least a third-round pick in return that could turn into a second-round pick, so I guess it could be worse. And it was a great swing given what Derek Carr did for them, but obviously it's not a home run trade for them either. Let me know what you guys think about this trade in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.